Hey everyone, Brandon here with Galloway Precision. Today we're going to go over the installation of our reduced power spring kit for the Kel-Tec PF-9. Real simple, straightforward installation. There will be one difference between newer model PF-9s and older model PF-9s. Newer model PF-9s take a Torx wrench, alright, a T10 by 80 Torx wrench to remove the extractor screw. Older models use, I can't remember off the top of my head, I want to say it's a 5/64 or 2 millimeters, something like that. I can't remember, honestly. We don't have an older one for me to look at, but it's going to be an Allen wrench instead, and it'll go over in your manual, or Kel-Tec customer service directly can tell you. But we're going to be dealing with the newer model with the Torx. Alright, so let's go over tools we're going to need. You need your bench block. You need a 1/16 punch, T10 by 80 Torx wrench, 1/8 inch punch, a straight pick, shepherd's crook pick, and your brass polymer hammer combo or separate brass and polymer hammers. Alright, so let's go ahead and lock and clear the weapon. We are visually and physically empty. So now we're going to take our straight pick and pop out our takedown. Take the slide off. We'll start with the frame because, believe it or not, the frame is the easiest part to do. Alright, so we're going to drive out our frame pins first. Those are the only pins that need to be removed. Do not remove this pin. Alright, this pin right here, that is your hammer catch pin. You take that out and you're going to have a hard time getting the hammer catch spring and everything back in. It's kind of a pain in the butt. So let's leave that be. We're going to flip the frame upside down, take our shepherd's crook, pull up on that, let it go inside the grip frame, and now the entire, some of these can be very tight. So if they're tight, take your flat straight pick, insert where the takedown is, and just pop it up a little bit like that. It'll come right on out, okay? Alright, so now we're going to take our 1/8 inch and push out the hammer pin, and pull the hammer out. We'll set the chassis off to the side for a second, set our frame out of the way. Alright, now first things first, we're going to push up on the hammer spring. For most of you, when you push up on this, it should move fairly easily, and the roll pin that holds it in place should come loose. If it does not, take your shepherd's crook. There should be some space on either side. Get it inside the roll pin and just pull it out like that, okay? I'll remove the hammer spring from the hammer spring seat. Take our 1/16 punch and drive out our hammer pin. You don't have to drive it all the way out. Honestly, if you're driving it from this side, you can go ahead and just make it to where it goes into this part of the hammer here so you can get the new spring in. But it's fairly easy to drive these out. So when you do drive it out, make sure that when you put it back in, you put it on from the thicker side. We don't want to break this part by hammering and missing or anything like that. So it comes out, we're going to put it back in from the thick side of the hammer. Alright, go ahead and tap it to where it's starting to go in, where the spring's going to seat. And make sure, if you can see that, you can see the cut is facing this circle. Okay, you want the cut of the roll pin up at an angle so that it doesn't get caught, the lip of the roll pin right there. This piece will rest against the hammer catch. So if you have the cut in the roll pin facing down, the hammer catch can get stuck in there and lock up the gun. Alright, so let's open our bag of goodies. We'll take out our hammer spring and our firing pin. We'll set them over here. Take our stock hammer spring, stick it in the bag. Why do we keep our parts? Because if you need to send it in for warranty work, you reinstall the stock parts. There isn't a manufacturer, with the exception of the Ghost Bar for Glocks, that you can keep aftermarket parts in a gun. If you send it to a manufacturer, they will send it back stock and not return your aftermarket parts. Alright, so here's our hammer. Here's where the spring goes in, making sure that we hold it just like this. All right, spring forward, because when it goes in the gun, the hook needs to be facing to the rear. So we're going to hold that in place, tap that, get it started. All right, and make sure you take your 1/16, push it on through to where it's equidistant on both sides, and springs the hammer well. Springs the hammer spring well. All right, we're going to take and we're going to put our hammer spring seat back on. Insert your roll pin with the cut facing into the cup. Push it on down in there. Pull the hammer spring. That'll tighten that up. Take your chassis. Making sure, you'll see one side's tapered, one side's not. Tapered end goes through, comes out on the left-hand side. All right. Non-tapered is on this side because that's where the trigger bar lies. While you have it out, someone took my oiler. Hold on. Go ahead and put a little oil on your trigger bar channel. All right. Don't necessarily have to, but it certainly does not hurt to keep that lubed. All right, we're going to respring our trigger spring. We're going to hold that just like that, holding the trigger bar in. All right, so we're going to take our grip frame, and the way I like to do this is I start completely perpendicular so that the hammer spring seat will go into the mag well like it should. You're going to start pressing it in. All right, when you get to about this point, you're going to take your straight pick, push forward on the hammer catch, and then seat all at the same time as you're pulling it out. What this does is puts the hammer catch in the right place. And the way I like to test that is once I get the chassis seated, I'll move the trigger a bunch. If the hammer seat is sitting correctly, it's going to move the hammer. So then we're going to go ahead and take our shepherd's crook, hook up underneath the mag spring hammer spring seat, pull that all the way up, lock it into the grip frame like so. Now we'll pull the trigger and see that the hammer's falling correctly. Alright, so we're ready to put our frame pins back in. Let's take your polymer hammer, drive your frame pins back through, making sure, of course, they're equidistant on both sides so you're not getting poked while you're shooting. Alright. Alright, so now we are going to do the slide. The reason I saved the slide for last is, believe it or not, it's a little bit trickier than the hammer spring install in the chassis, being that it's hard to see some of the things you're going to be doing and getting everything lined up. Alright, so let's go ahead and take our guide rod and barrel out of the slide. Flip it over. You're going to take your T10. Alright, you're going to loosen. Now this one's been apart before. If yours does not come apart immediately, don't try and force it because you're likely to mess up your Torx wrench. They use some sort of white Loctite. I called Kel-Tec one day trying to figure out what it was so I could know what to heat it up to, and they don't even know. So if it doesn't come out at first, apply heat, being very careful. If you need to apply heat, take off your rear sight first. This is plastic, it will melt. Alright, so we've got our extractor spring screw out, our extractor spring. Don't need to take the extractor out, but just so we don't flip around stuff and lose it, go ahead and take it off, set it with the spring and the screw. Alright, now our firing pin falls right out because I have gone through and polished this piece. There tends to be some burrs and whatnot on it, so yours may not come out that easily. You may have to take a small pair of needle nose pliers and pull it out, and if that doesn't work, I would highly suggest ordering a second firing pin, because you're going to need to take a 1/16 punch, put it in the breech face, give it a tap to the pin and knock it out, and you don't want to screw up the pin. So it's always good. They sell them on Kel-Tec's website. I want to say they're like $8-9 plus shipping. They're not super expensive. With PF-9, I'd keep a couple around just in case anyway. Great little gun, but it is cheap and it's built cheaply on purpose, so it's more affordable for more people. All right, so moving on, take your firing pin out. Now, like I said, if it had a hard time coming out, but you did get it out without having to use a pin punch, go ahead and this is the part that you're going to want to polish up. That tends to have the burrs front and rear from the casting machining process after the casting. So once you polish that up, it's going to go in and out no problem. So we're going to take our stock spring, put it in our goodie bag. And take our new spring. Let's go ahead and put it in the firing pin channel. Now when you go to install the firing pin, it's going to go in at this angle, okay? The reason being is your extractor spring screw goes right in there, and that's what limits the travel of the firing pin so it doesn't over penetrate or not go deep enough. Let's take your 1/8 inch punch. Alright, push it in. The other reason I polish this is it makes it much easier to see through this tiny little hole, so you can make sure that you're lined up correctly. Because you'll know if you're not, you'll go to put everything together and you won't be able to push the firing pin at all. Alright, so it's about impossible to make out, but you see how I have it angled right there? That's how you're going to put it in. With the polishing, you can see where it begins and ends, so it's much easier. Go ahead and put your extractor in, your spring back on. You're going to keep it compressed with your finger, just like that. Alright. I'll put our screw back in. You don't want to over tighten this, you just need to hand tighten it. You over tighten it, and you run the risk of stripping this screw to where if something happens you can't get the firing pin back out. Alright, so then you want to take your 1/8 inch punch, just push on it, make sure it protrudes out the front, let it spring backwards once like it should, you're good to go. Let's go ahead and make sure this is snug. It's snug. Alright, we're going to go ahead and put our slide back on. Yeah, come on. Alright, now, here's a little trick for you. Putting these things back together can be a big pain in the butt. You gotta sit here and hold it up and down, and sometimes the barrel doesn't cooperate, moves around. So, I'm going to show you what I do. I take my 1/16 or my straight pick, I stick it right in the takedown hole, rack the slide back, barrel is perfectly in place with the lug, takedown pin in, and we are done. Alright, so now what you're going to want to do is take a pencil, regular pencil, alright, rack the slide, stick the pencil down in there. Alright, you're good. Pistol fires, that means everything launches the pencil, I should say. That means that everything's working and you are good to go. And that's going to wrap up this video, guys. Very simple, straightforward installation that even without the short stroke trigger makes a big difference in how this pistol operates and works. Gets rid of a lot of the trigger slap with the stock trigger, and makes it much more comfortable, makes you a lot more accurate when shooting. Alright, and that's going to wrap it up, guys. If you got any questions, feel free to email me at tech, that's T-E-C-H, Tango Echo Charlie Hotel at GallowayPrecision.com. Be sure to follow us here on social media, on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe below. Be sure to go check out our Vimeo page, Facebook, and Instagram pages. And that's going to be it. So as always, be safe, be accurate, and God bless.